1 minute and 11 seconds of logos.
I will spare you all the 22 seconds Jeremy spends going on this logo sin rant, and instead give him that many sins for thinking anyone still cares about his complaining.
So this upside-down part of the city seems pretty interesting. Obviously, some robots hang around in the upper part, but either gravity doesn't bother them or the basement floor is more like the top floor. It's an important detail that is never explained, and clearly the movie makers aren't considering the curiosity of the architects among us.
I know you're not being serious about the architecture being an important detail, so I'm going to instead sin you for not understanding the obvious way in which this building works. Iacon is entirely underground, so it's essentially a cave city. The inhabitants have buildings on the floor of this cave, but they also have something that an above-ground society like ours doesn't. A solid ceiling from which they can construct buildings from the top down. So the top floor would be the closest to the ceiling of this cave, and this would be the bottom floor.
The short of this presentation is that a super robot god becomes a planet that withholds life-giving energy to everyone until a leader that it likes is in charge. What a
Well, yeah, Primus doesn't want his disciples to be ruled by someone as wicked as Sentinel Prime, so he cuts off the energon for everyone to get Sentinel to step down, if not kill him. And if everyone else dies, so be it. Kind of like how in the Book of Exodus, God unleashed plagues upon Egypt because he didn't like the Pharaoh.
Matrix, there it is. Okay, good. Come on, keep going.
thing heard in theaters after the first Matrix movie, but not after any of the sequels somehow makes it into the script.
Except the Matrix that Orion is talking about has existed in this franchise since long before the Matrix movie came out. You should know this because you sinned 2 Transformers movies where it was the main MacGuffin.
He doesn't have a cog. Let's give him a head start.
Why not? It's not like he can transform.
This conversation that serves no purpose to anyone in the room, but gives the audience that sweet, sweet cog exposition they've been craving.
None of the live-action films establish the concept of transformation cogs, and since this movie is being considerate of those who aren't hardcore Transformers fans like I am, they, and especially you, need this information.
So long, sucker!
The overhead shot established there was no hole in the ground, but suddenly there is one. I wouldn't be as angry about it if there wasn't another sudden fall through the floor joke later in the movie.
In the footage you're showing, you point to these panels on the ground that appear in the same area as the hole in the next shot. I think it's very obvious that the panels are meant to cover these holes, but this one collapsed under Orion's weight, hence the fall. The real sin is that the hole looks to be square, even though the panels were rectangular.
Let me guess. Checked out of the archives?
Since you're guessing about this, I'll also guess that this means you just happen to be in the exact right place at the exact right time to ex machina your best friend, and this movie is guessing that no one will notice. Well, you guessed wrong, movie.
Or, Orion and D16 plan to meet each other there in case Orion's trip to the archives went awry. Why else would it be convenient that D16 was pushing around this bin large enough for Orion to hide in?
Hey, if we did have cogs,
I'd transform into a shovel and beat you.
In a world where machines with cogs have the ability to transform into anything they like, the fact that most of them walk around looking humanoid is probably the biggest sin of the movie.
Well, to use a god analogy again, most Cybertronians have humanoid forms because Primus made them in his image. Or you could just accept it as the norm of this movie's world without explanation. I mean, just like God, Primus only exists in fiction.
Spending time taking us through the entire energon mining process like I give a shit about the entire energon mining process.
Kinda like how we feel about your entire sins of padded out nitpicks like we give a shit about your entire sins of padded out nitpicks.
Feeling like I have enough power in me to drill down and touch Primus myself.
Saying this in a PG-13 movie.
No, this movie is PG, so that's worse. Or it would be if this wasn't the movie referencing The Touch.
Next time, why don't you stop and think before you ruin someone's life?
Forgetting that Orion stopped and thought about Jazz's life being ruined before he disobeyed orders and saved him yesterday, which just means the real issue is probably Orion's sexism.
I'm sorry, what the fuck, Jeremy? How could you expect Orion to know that going back to save Jazz's life would ruin Alita's career? The latter was just an accident as a result of the former. And even if he could have known, he wouldn't have based that decision on Alita being a woman. Jazz's life is more important than Alita having to work her way back up the ranks again.
Metal mouth areas that react like human lips when punched in slow motion.
You mean the metal mouth lips they've had since the original cartoon, Marvel Comics, and toys they were based on before that?
Is it on? Okay, thank you.
Not trusting that your producer has that sorted and just starting your speech, as if we needed more obvious tells that Sentinel Prime is the bad guy.
So having technical difficulties means someone is the bad guy? Maybe I should change my disclaimer then, because with the amount of editing hiccups you've had in these videos over the years, this sets a precedent.
Look, there's Thunderglide and Behemoth.
My college girlfriend's exclamations while checking her bedside table drawer have entered the chat.
Jeremy makes a college girlfriend remark that no one wait, what was that?
My college girlfriend's exclamations.
Exclamations?
Exclamations.
It has been precisely 50 cycles since the Quintessons attacked our home.
Not giving us the context we need to know how long 50 cycles is. I'd assume similar to our years, but in the comics, a cycle was often a day, so now I don't know if these Quintessons attacked 50 days ago, 50 years ago, or it, maybe it was 50 centuries ago. I guess I can no longer care about these characters without this important chronological exposition. Sorry, Hasbro.
Interesting to hear you acknowledge comic book information for a change, even if you still should have shown or given a more specific citation. But to answer your question, cycles and their use as terminology have been very inconsistent in the Transformers franchise, and depending on continuity, there are variations of cycles such as nanocycles, megacycles, and stellar cycles. In Transformers 1, the way in which they use the term cycle implies that it has been a relatively long time since the Primes fought the Quintessons, longer than these miners have even been alive for. If I were to take an educated guess, though, I would say that a cycle can't be as short as an Earth day, or whatever the length of a day is here on Cybertron, since they never use cycle in the context of any length of time during which the main events of the movie take place.
This robot untransforms an entire leg from his jet to kick Orion off of him, and it barely impacts his flight path. The movie doesn't know how to aeronautic correctly.
By Earth aeronautics, no, but this is Cybertron. We don't know what the properties of this planet's atmosphere are like, or if there even is one. If it's a vacuum, this racer's flight path would not be impacted at all.
Also, none of the other racers in this scene are arrested for endangering a miner.
Well, yeah, they don't give a fuck about these miners because they're lower on the caste system. They're essentially slaves, and this is the normal mentality in this society, even if it isn't right.
One miner is now carrying the other, mere steps from the finish line.
It wouldn't be a race between friends if we didn't have the classic go on without me part. But also, the chivalry is a bit undercut by the fact that they are listed together on the official race graphics. So he may only be doing this because he isn't sure if he'd lose on a technicality.
If Orion's not sure that he'd lose on a technicality, how can you be sure they'd both win if he left D16 behind with or without his approval to do so? Also, it's not in Orion's character to leave someone behind, as shown earlier with Jazz, not to mention it'd make him look bad in front of thousands of onlookers.
Arachnid, have someone escort these heroes to my personal service facilities.
The spot is named Arachnid, a play on the Earth word for spider, because she walks like a spider and has eyes like a spider. And do they even have spiders here?
Even though Cybertronians are created by Primus, they can have influences from the other primes. In Arachnid's case, her spider mode comes from Onyx Prime, who bases his descendants on all manner of alien creatures, including Earth spiders.
Hate that guy.
You mean Darkwing? The guard you flipped off for just doing his job? The guy you interfered with as an unregistered racer in a race he was probably about to win? Yeah, he's the asshole here.
Yes, he is. In a scene that you cut out, Darkwing was the one who demoted Elita 1 to waste management, which is why Orion Pax flipped him off in her defense.
If I get fired because of you...
Oh, please. They're not gonna fire you.
Elita 1, you're fired.
What? Why? I followed protocol to the letter.
Well, that is true. I was the one who broke the rules.
No one asked you, Darkwing. Please, I have worked too hard for this.
You are no-cog bots with limited options. Report to waste management immediately.
Oh, I'm B-127, by the way. But you can call me B.
Movie continues to accidentally its leads into meet-cutes with other important characters like this bumbling bee.
Look, I wish this character was someone other than Bumblebee. Preferably Dion, since this movie already has Orion Pax and Elita 1. But for the purpose of the story, he's not already important because he's Bumblebee. He only becomes important because Orion and D16 meet him.
Those are coordinates to a location on the surface.
The way these bozos convenient themselves into this holographic map of planetoid plot relevance is so ridiculous it just made A New Hope 78% better just by existing.
Knowing your history of unjustly hating holograms in the Star Wars movies, this sin isn't worth the text space it took up when your editing team typed it.
Touchable, movable, holographic projections.
Which also exists in Star Wars, so I'm saying this for the same reason as the last one.
What do you think Sentinel's reaction would be if you personally handed him the matrix of leadership that you found?
Orion continues to be that asshole who constantly goads his friend into doing horribly dangerous things, and the movie will continue to treat him like some kind of hero.
It's called a character flaw, Jeremy. Orion hasn't become a hero yet, and this is something that he grows beyond before that point.
They don't allow passengers. Their trains are autonomous.
Yeah, that's the won't be easy part.
Thinking boarding an unmanned and unguarded train that just happens to be going exactly where you want to go is the won't be easy part.
No one ever said the trains are unguarded just because they're autonomous. There are workers like Elita 1 who can be seen loading the trains, and that's what Bumblebee meant by the won't be easy part in response to D16 mentioning that the trains don't allow passengers.
Climb faster!
Says the robot that just got out of the hatch and hasn't even started climbing yet.
Because Bumblebee is ahead of D16 and has a better chance of catching up to Elita.
I am speechless.
Get it? He will become Bumblebee, and Bumblebee can't talk. Do you get it?
We don't even know if Bumblebee will even lose his voice because this is yet another reboot separate from either the Michael Bay films or the new universe established by the Bumblebee movie and Rise of the Beasts. And don't give me that whole, but Lorenzo di Bonaventura said that Transformers 1 is set 3 billion years before the live-action films bullshit that man has been peddling just to avoid alienating the Bayformers fans. Lorenzo makes about as much sense talking about the continuity of these films as CinemaSins does with any straw man.
Why the are there transforming deer, and why are they grazing?
These deer are never shown to have the ability to transform in this film, and they're likely another product of Onyx Prime. Next question.
The Quintesson ship leaves after the bridge save because its tension release sensors detected it was time.
Pronouncing Quintesson as Quintesson.
If one tiny energon cube can completely power up this Amazonian Prime this quickly, I'm gonna need a lesson in robot digestion immediately.
No, you don't. The movie is not hindered by the lack of such information, and if it establishes that one energon cube can power Alpha Trion in the time that we see him alive for this movie, that's that. Deal with it.
Come. I will show you.
I guess even primes haven't been programmed to avoid you better come take a look at this cliches.
Jeremy continues to think anyone has a problem with this universal story trope as if we'd rather receive Alpha Trion's information via expository dialogue. He would have seen the movie for that too.
The primes prove their strength and defeat a horde of green monsters, but a weaker sentinel shows up with a sword and a blaster taking out the primes? How did he become so powerful? Are we skipping that part?
Scene manipulation. The Quintessons were not defeated in this battle. They were serving as a distraction so that Sentinel could kill the primes more easily. They even helped Sentinel by pinning down Megatronus so that he could get beheaded in this footage that you cut out.
The matrix of leadership can only be wielded by one that Primus himself deems worthy.
Chris Hemsworth plays a character hoping to wield a weapon that is picky about who can wield it cliché.
Jeremy invents a cliché that he'll only ever use for this one-time cliché. Because, seriously, how many Chris Hemsworth characters besides Thor fall into this cliché? Yeah, that's what I thought. I would have gone with Chris Hemsworth plays a leader cliché, but even that's not a sin. TF1 Optimus, Thor in his solo films, Dementis, Jed in Red Dawn 2012, the guy is really great at playing a leader is what I'm saying.
He's here. Sentinel Prime is here.
Well, that's convenient. It's almost like every character is a wizard and arrives precisely when the script means them to.
Jeremy makes an unwarranted reference to popular culture cliché.
Sentinel lied to my face.
No, he lied to you through speeches and broadcasts. The only time he was ever in your face, he just talked about wanting you guys to inspire the miners to work more, which was surprisingly the truth.
But the entire point of that conversation was about the miners being able to show the worth of their potential, and now that D16 knows that it ultimately goes to benefiting the Quintessons, he realizes that the miners aren't worth anything to Sentinel, and that he was lied to.
D16 seems to be destroying something very important and symbolic, and the movie did a terrible job of explaining anything about it. I am unmoved.
How is it not obvious to you that this guy who just had a change in viewpoint of his boss and his job is now taking out his anger by destroying a symbol of said job? Dude, this is the equivalent of a former McDonald's employee destroying their name tag.
Don't you want to stop him?
No, I want to kill him!
So, stopping him then?
25 sins for sitting this scene and the brilliant voice work that Brian Tyree Henry does for it.
Take their cogs and access your full potential.
Grave robbing.
Not quite. Transformation cogs are a natural component in Cybertronian biology, so this would actually be organ theft.
Also, slamming someone else's ball into your core without explicit consent.
Jeremy makes a disgusting remark that no one
Okay, fine. This transformation scene is better and more meaningful than any single transforming scene in the history of any of the movies. I'm not an unfeeling robot. Take your sin back.
Does that include the Optimus Prime and Megatron transformations at the end of this movie? Or Hot Rod becoming Rodimus Prime in the 1986 movie? Just saying, as a huge Transformers fan, it's hard to top those.
I got it.
D16 transforms from jovial best friend to sociopathic revenge bot faster than you could angrily type, "How did you not sin Chris Hemsworth for not being worthy of licking the vocal boots of Peter Cullen?" in the comments.
I could have responded to the first part of your sin, but instead I'm going to rant about the second part. Look, I love Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime. The character wouldn't be the cultural icon he is today without the dedication the man has put into his vocal performance for 40 years now. But judging Chris Hemsworth's take on this role because he isn't Peter Cullen is just offensive to both. Optimus Prime has had other voice actors besides them too, like Gary Chalk, Neil Kaplan, David Kaye, and Alan Tudyk, who each brought something to make their role their own. Heck, the characterization of TF1 Optimus is so different from any of those that I can't imagine Peter Cullen's heavy inflections of a wise old sage and a war veteran fitting this version. Chris Hemsworth pulls off the dumb but kind-hearted jock vibe of this Orion Pax / Optimus Prime very convincingly, and he even went as far as to say that he tried not to copy Peter Cullen.
When I first got the phone call from Lorenzo Bonaventura, the producer, I was like, I don't want to follow or try and mimic what Peter Cullen's done. He said, that's not the goal, we don't want that.
So no, Chris Hemsworth is not licking the vocal boots of Peter Cullen, and not every Optimus Prime needs to be like the original. And if any G1 purists say otherwise, you're getting blocked in the comments.
Not trusting us to know it's an alien planet without showing us that it has more moons than we do.
But in the original Transformers mythos, which again, you sinned the movie of, Cybertron has always been shown to have at least 2 moons.
Who exactly are you guys?
I think there are a group of rebels added into the movie about 2/3 of the way in to make sure the film gets to a feature-length runtime, and also to give us a much-needed hit of nostalgia for some of the bots we remember from our childhood. Am I close?
No, the Cybertronian High Guard are here in this story to serve as a piece of motivation for D16's character development and to set up the rise of the Decepticons that we see in the post-credits scene.
D16 transforms from sociopathic revenge bot to autocratic war-hungry cult leader faster than you could angrily type, "How did you not remove a sin?" for my specific favorite part of the movie in the comments.
Admits this moment is worthy of a sin removal, but sins it anyway.
Those Energon trains will be heading back to Iacon. If we intercepted one...
Hell yes, I can reroute it.
The trains that have been hard to track? The trains that were present outside of the Prime's death cave sometime yesterday? The death cave that they no longer are near because they were captured and moved to Starscream's hideout? But somehow they'll know the way to get wherever the magic trains are to complete this mission.
It's implied during the interrogation scene that the High Guard raid the Energon trains when they come up to the surface, which is how they've been able to survive here for 50 cycles. Meaning they're the best at knowing how to find the trains for this mission.
Megatronus was the coolest Prime.
False. Despite Sheldon's full-throated defense of 73, 41 is the coolest Prime. It's just sexier. Dare you to find a sexier Prime than 41. You can't!
Nah, I'm with Sentinel on this one. Megatronus is the coolest Prime. Not only did he get a sick-as-hell new leader class figure this year, he also got his name in the title of a Michael Bay movie. Yeah, that's right. This guy is the TF1 version of this guy. Oh, and the fact that he, and Sentinel, die in this film is proof positive that this is a separate continuity from the Bayverse.
But as you can see, everything is different now.
Flashing your cogs in a public setting without explicit consent, or the opportunity to receive beads in return.
I'm gonna count this as Jeremy says boner.
Check out this amazing shot of the two forces. Oh, we're done with that angle already? Can this movie please just sit still for 1 second during the action scenes?
Jeremy yells at the screen cliche.
Oh, that's intense.
It also makes no sense. Why would all these eyes be closed for the majority of time and only open now for this big reveal? Does she only open them up when it's time to freak out the audience?
Yeah, I'm gonna remove a sin for this only because I complained about it too in my review of this movie, and I'd look like a hypocrite if I didn't. It's not so much actually a movie sin as it is with me.
Battle mask! It appeared when this guy tried to... Knife hands? I have knife hands!
I don't care if Jeremy removed a sin for this. That fucking laugh.
I said don't break her!
Orion appears to be watching a lead a battle angeling from the tower, and I'm certain he has better things to do than micromanage.
Jeremy makes an unwarranted reference to
Who would have thought that Sentinel Prime, a bot capable of defeating all the primes of the past, has taken a tumble to the top of a building and is suddenly weak enough to be destroyed?
I don't know. Getting beat up by Megatron until he's too weak to fight back is kind of a thing with Sentinel.
Optimus Pax Machina.
You know, Jeremy, I think I figured out after all this time why you keep misusing Deus Ex Machina. It's not about whether the solution to a problem has been pre-established or not. You just don't like when things happen suddenly. What? Would you have preferred that this movie telegraphed that Orion was going to stop D16 from killing Sentinel? That can't be true because then you'd send the movie for killing suspense. There is no version of this scene that will satisfy you, at least not without alienating the vast majority of the audience.
I'm done saving you.
Nice to see that even on other planets, robots are...
No! You just sinned this scene.
Also, can we pause for a moment of silence for all the other robots that have fallen into this massive pit to nowhere? Stupid planet with its ridiculous shaft to nowhere.
It's the well of all sparks, and it leads to Primus's spark chamber at the core of Cybertron. Also, you're still sinning this scene.
Your noble sacrifice for the greater good has proven you worthy in the eyes of Primus?
He's fucking unconscious. Maybe wait until he's online to tell him he's Robot Jesus.
Sinning this scene too!
Optimus rips off Megatron's appendage and smacks him with it. Megatron rolls over the top of it and absorbs it back onto his body, and now I'm even more confused about how they repair.
Acknowledging what is happening on the screen cliché. I would have not bothered to cover this in if you had just led with the question about the repair part.
I am Optimus Prime.
Chris Hemsworth is not worthy of licking the vocal boots of Peter Cullen.
And I'm not worthy to lick the CinemaSins sitting boots of a certain avian-themed YouTuber, yet here I am anyway. Then again, he'd rather make videos about grifting now, so I might end up stealing his lunch.
Astron.
No, Megatron, stop. What? No, Solus, my love.